What's the first book that comes to mind when you hear the phrase, the most difficult book? For me, my mind conjures up a book that I've been attempting to read for the past 10 years. In today's video, I attempt to tackle this beast, and thankfully, I won't be doing it alone. Hello, YouTube! We're back, and look who's joining me.
Hi!
Been way too long.
I'm excited.
Yes, what are we doing today?
We are going to buddy read a book.
Not just any book, folks. Moby Dick! Holy cow. On a scale of 1 to 10, how scared are you?
1 being like completely scared, 10 being excited.
Sure.
A 3.
3? Mildly terrified.
I'm worried about the language. That it might go over my head.
I mean, what? This is almost 200 years removed from the language that we speak. But it is highly revered as one of the greatest American novels, if not the greatest American novel to entertain. But we're gonna read Moby Dick. We're both scared of cats and we don't want to read it by ourselves.
Yes, we figured that we'd actually get it done if we had to read it together. And
I remember trying to read this for fun. If you can believe it. When I was a senior in high school, I thought,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pick up Moby Dick. I went into the school library. It took me 2 weeks to get to like page 40. Like, no. But it's been 10 years since that fateful day. So I think it's time to give this book another crack. And this is your first time.
Yes, it was given to me as a birthday present in January. He just laughed at me and said, good luck.
We're gonna send each other updates, what we hate, what we like, what frustrates us, what makes us laugh. Hello friends, family, and intimate reading associates. Thought I'd update you on Moby Dick. Yeah, it goes. I think I started this 2 weeks ago. Been working through Moby Dick. I am on chapter 16 on page 58. Just realizing that the language, there's such a difference between the way Melville writes and the way that I understand words. He references a lot of literature that I'm very unfamiliar with. Thank goodness there's footnotes in the back of this. The story really is the thing that I'm clinging to in this, because one of the most famous first lines in all of history, call me Ishmael. Ishmael essentially says that he every so often likes to be hired on a whaling vessel so that he doesn't have to stay on land for very long. And his reasoning behind that is so funny. He says this, whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before I can't even start. Whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially whenever my hypos gets such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off, then I count it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. So he says, whenever I start getting real depressed and real pissed off at the same time, when I'm starting fights in the streets, I know it's a good time for me to just get myself hired on a ship and go out to sea for a little bit. Calm my nerves down. What an explanation of why you even went on this infamous harrowing journey in the first place. I think it's hilarious, dude. The comedy, when I really pay attention to the text and don't let my ADHD brain wander too much, I have a good time with this book. Right now, Queequeg and him, they've made friends, and I think they're about to get on the ship and finally meet the infamous Captain Ahab. But before we do that, I think it'd be time to check in with old Chelsea, see where she's at.
So far, so good. He hasn't got on the boat yet. I think they're about ready. So my thoughts up to this point. Herman Melville is very descriptive, which I think is a good and bad thing. It's not just that he's descriptive either. I think it's because of the language he's using. I don't know. I feel like I've never read a book that's like this descriptive, where you're really like, the words that he's using and the way he describes it, I can see it in my head. Like I can see the inn and the room he's in and the alleyway. But I think it's also, sometimes you're just like, okay, I can see now why it's, let's see how many, like almost 800 pages. But so far I'm actually really enjoying it. Everyone told me good luck, which is probably a good thing because I went into it like, oh, I'm not gonna enjoy this book, so my bar was really low. But I've actually enjoyed it. This is definitely not a book where you can get distracted. I find myself having to reread sometimes because I'm like, squirrel.
Folks, I have a confession. I have not done an update, nor picked up this book to read in about a month. I know, but it's October. And I've been giving a lot of precedence and priority to all of the Stephen King content that I was filming, and now that's over. And so I finally started picking this book back up. Couldn't tell you the last update I gave you, but I am on chapter 53 on page 198. That is both good and bad. There's 135 chapters to this behemoth of a book. I'm not even 50% of the way through, and this needed to be done yesterday. I'm back into it. I'm back into the groove. I put Stephen King down for a while. I picked up Herman. And I can honestly say what I've been reading so far has been amazing. It was such a slog a couple of weeks ago because he just, oh gosh, like most classic authors and literary fiction people, classic people, come after me all you want, but let's be honest. A lot of the authors of the classics go on too many tangents. Too many tangents. And Herman frickin' Melville is no different. I think I've drawn my own conclusion about why that is. I think sometimes these authors go on tangents, not only to kind of just go on a tangent, but sometimes I feel like it's a world building tool or an expository tool to give broader insight and context into what's being said or what's happening culturally, philosophically, you name it. Herman Melville does that, with flying freaking colors. He slogs me down so much with his exposition on whaling and how whaling got started and the different methods of whaling and the different kinds of ships there are and the different kind of freaking whales there are. Ugh, just so much tedious stuff that I really didn't need. He could have put that in like a historical note in the back of the book for further reading later, but he didn't do that. Instead, you have to sit through those chapters. And I'm not going to lie, I did not read the majority of the chapters that did that. Skimmed and scanned and skipped my way through because I couldn't stand it. But anytime he laser focuses in on the plot and the narrative of the story, I am all there for it. What I just read was so cool. Essentially, they found their first whale in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. He goes through the exciting process of actually how whaling is done, but he doesn't give me boring, nonsensical, exposition. He gives me an actual plot. And it was so exciting. I kind of felt my heartbeat raise a little bit. It was that exciting. I'm not gonna lie, my thalassophobia was through the roof. You're gonna get in a little dinky boat and paddle after a whale in thousands of feet of water? You couldn't pay me enough money in the world to do that. My heartbeat was racing because the plot was exciting, and also I was scared to death because I felt like I was drowning. Yeah, I'm scared of the ocean. I don't like it. I prefer to be on the sand or level ground. That was probably my favorite part of the book so far. There's one really profound, what am I saying, one? But one of the things that I found was at the end of chapter 52 on page 198. This was incredible. Round the world, there is much in that sound to inspire proud feelings, but whereto does all that circumnavigation conduct? Only through numberless perils to the very point whence we started, where those that we left behind secure were all the time before us. That's such a profound idea. I mean, what he said was only through numberless perils to the very point whence we started, where those that we left behind secure were all the time before us. He's pondering on this idea of circumnavigating the globe. You have a starting point, you're chasing the horizon, you're chasing these perilous dangers, only to realize having passed through them, they're now behind you. But because you're circumnavigating this sphere in the middle of space, you end up coming back to your starting point. In retrospect, but also ahead of you, you realize that these perils that you went out to face that were securely behind you were in front of you this entire time, because all you've done is start where you finished. Now, to some of you, that might sound like utter gibberish. Dude, that's so profound. Melville drops bombs like that in his prose. But enough rambling. I do not have any more time to read this book, so let's continue.
Moby Dick. I'm now on chapter 49. There are a couple of chapters where I'm like, why is this in here? Bruh spends like a whole chapter on all the different kinds of whales. I mean, it's not that I hate it, but you're just like, why? Why?
I don't want to read this right now, but I will. Oh my gosh. I have given no small attention to that not unvexed subject, the skin of the whale. I don't care. I don't care. The question is, what and where is the skin of the whale? Already you know what his blubber is. That blubber is something of the consistence of firm, close-grained beef, but tougher, more elastic and compact, and ranges from 8 or 10 to 12 and 15 inches in thickness. I don't care, Herman. This book is breaking me down mentally. I'm skipping this chapter, bro. I'm skipping it. I don't care. there we go. Some dialogue. Finally back to the story. After, I don't know how many chapters. Oh, endless.
Chapter 68. Guys, can I just miss some chapters? Come on, bro. He spends like a whole chapter on whale paintings. Yes, that's right. Whale paintings. And telling you which are the most accurate. There's also a chapter on whale books and which ones are the best to read. There's a chapter on whale skin. Why? Only people who are fascinated with an animal want to describe it this much. I'm here for the story, not to know which whale paintings best represent a whale. It's a really good book, but sometimes you just want to pull your hair out because you're like, why? Back to it.
It's been hours upon hours, and I finally made it. The chase is finally happening. Chapter 133 of 135. I've spent this entire book getting to these last 3 chapters. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Let's get it done. I'm done. I finished Moby Dick. It took me nearly 2 months. Moby Dick is the story of Captain Ahab's quest to avenge the whale that reaped his leg. The quest is an obsession, and the novel is a diabolical study of how a man becomes a fanatic. Boy, is that the truth. But it is also a hymn to democracy. Bent as the crew is on Ahab's appalling crusade, it is equally the image of a cooperative community at work, all hands dependent on all hands, each individual responsible for the security of each. Yeah, also true. That's pretty good. Among the crew is Ishmael, the novel's narrator, ordinary sailor, and extraordinary reader. Digressive, elusive, vulgar, transcendent, the story Ishmael tells is above all an education in the practice of whaling, in the art of writing, expanding to equal his mighty theme, not only the whale, but all things sublime. Melville breathes in the world's great literature. Moby Dick is the greatest novel ever written by an American. What a statement. Do I agree? I have no idea. Where to collect my thoughts. Moby Dick by Herman Melville. It's a book that covers many genres over its 135 chapter sprawl. The protagonist / narrator, Ishmael, introduces us not only to himself, but the story at large. With probably one of the most famous opening lines to a book, "Call me Ishmael." And then from there, you get Moby Dick. What? I felt like this book could have been 100 chapters lighter. I understand the prominence that this book holds among the pantheon of classic literature. I'm supposedly reading the greatest American novel, so here's my thoughts, okay? If you're going into this book thinking that this is going to be just a simple story, boy, will you be severely surprised. After Ishmael introduces the story, after the sails are set, and the ship is out to sea, then everything changes. For probably the next 100 chapters. I really do mean this literally. For the next 100 chapters, the book is completely different. It takes on a completely different tone, format in most places. Ishmael no longer is this first-person character. He now becomes almost a disembodied narrative voice. Though he still speaks in I's and me's and us's and we's, Ishmael no longer becomes this character who's in search for knowledge. He is now the voice of knowledge throughout the book. There's so much that fits under the umbrella of the next 100 chapters of this book that could drive any reader bonkers. Sometimes you will get that sultry afternoon, this happened, and ooh, that evening, this happened, and ooh, there was a storm, and this is what happened. Sometimes you get that. I'm not going to say that you get that evenly dispersed throughout those 100 chapters, because you don't. There are chapters upon chapters upon chapters of just mind-numbing whale facts. I wouldn't say there are useless parts to this book, but I also would not say that some of it is altogether absolutely necessary. And then, of course, the climactic chase of Moby Dick happens, and that insane ending that you really don't see coming until the last freaking sentence. I'm not going to rate this book. I don't think I've yet rated a classic on this channel, and I don't think I will. Maybe enough rambling. Now it's time to pick up with Chelsea. I'll see you then. Look who's here!
Hi!
You know what's funny about this? I finished this about 5 minutes before you got here.
Did you really?
I did. I spent the last 2 hours reading 50 whole pages in 2 hours. Because it takes that long to read 50 pages of this book!
It does, actually.
Oh, when did we start this? September?
Yes. Not a book that you can read quickly.
No, it's not. Before we begin, she has posted a vlog. Please go like and subscribe to her channel. That'll be amazing. That is a really good video, by the way. So please go check it out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I really like how descriptive he was. I don't know
Really?
Yes, because I don't know if you know this, but people, when they're reading, they can either like see it in their head or they can't. And so it was actually really helpful.
Really?
Because then I could see it. It was hard not to be able to picture it. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
But yes, sometimes you're like, okay, we can speed up this.
It seems like the plot chapters are like the first 20.
Yes.
And then there's a huge just like, what in the world are we talking about? And then
Yes.
he picks back up the last maybe 25 chapters of the book. Like that is the plot.
It's true.
You can almost skip 100 whole chapters.
There's a lot he could have taken out. If you love whales, then you will love this book.
And then there's that infamous chapter on the whiteness of the whale. Did I need it? No. No, I didn't. Essentially, this book kind of took people by surprise because his other novels don't read anything like this.
Oh.
They're actually straightforward stories.
Okay.
But Moby Dick, I guess he wrote as an allegory for multiple things. Like, I guess the whiteness of the whale represents God. And I think some Moby Dick scholars, because they need their own freaking scholarship on this book, I guess a lot of them come to the conclusion that the whale itself represents God, and that, you know, between the two main voices of the book, Ahab, he embodies obsession and compulsion, whereas Ishmael embodies the pursuit of knowledge. That's why a lot of the chapters in this book are like, why do we care? But it's Ishmael working through his own thoughts.
It was actually really good. Like, I feel like the last 3 chapters, I was like...
Folks, thank you so much for being here. Please, again, go to... why do I do that? I'm so used to saying I'm so used to saying go to Ashton's channel. Head on over to Chelsea's channel. Her video and her channel will be linked down below. So please go give her some love and some likes and some support. Folks, if you want to see more book swaps and buddy reads, let us know. We're always going to be doing this. See you guys later.